when before England and France and Spain and Portugal colonized the Americas and the islands, that they had been involved in violent activities among all of the different different groups in Europe for quite some time, you know, and that violence is not something that was created in your neighborhoods the other day.
Gotcha.
What it is that people would want you to think that violence is this new thing that didn't come into existence until all of a sudden you started to develop the neighborhoods that you live in.
Right. Well, I guess how does violence differ from war?
It doesn't. War is violence.
I would imagine that even in Africa there's wars.
There have always been wars, but here's the funny thing about the wars that used to take place in Africa once upon a time. Most of the times when different groups would actually confront each other and they were getting ready to fight, all they would do is line up on a hilltop, and then two people, one from this group and one from this group, might come down, and then they would dance. And they'd actually decide who actually danced better, this group or that group, based on the dancers. And that's how they would fight their wars. Wars did not start actually being fought on the continent in the way that they had been being fought on the European continent, or what would become known as the European continent, until a brother by the name of Shaka Zulu.
Oh, yeah.
Shaka Zulu, at least in the southeastern part of Africa, actually introduced a new kind of warfare.
Okay. So there was no dancing.
Not one Shaka Zulu came up with what he came up with.
Okay.
He stopped all that,
Okay.
and he invented a way of fighting with the short spear.
Okay.
What you want to do is go learn the name of the short spear that Shaka came up with, and the long spear that Shaka came up with. And he came up with a shield that pretty much covered the whole body.
Oh.
And the spear and the blade of the spear and the short weapon or spear that he brought into existence, we have to find out who made those weapons for Shaka. Because the weapons that were created or made or manufactured for Shaka were made by some little people who were considered to be magicians.
Really?
Oh, without a doubt. They lived in an area called Swaziland. And they had the ability to actually cause a furnace to heat to a temperature that would not be realized until the 1800s by most of what we would come to know as civilization. In other words, you see, you have to go through this step by step to figure out when things change from, let's say, what you call copper or bronze to iron. When did steel come into existence? These are the things that you have to try to learn and figure out if you're ever going to truly understand how people on this planet have actually evolved and if you're going to ever understand about violence. But understand, violence is not just an act of anger between two people or two groups of people based on wars. Violence, there's a lot of different kinds of violence on this planet. It could be a volcano. And when a volcano erupts, that is a violent act. The reason you pretty much don't see it as violence is because it's nature. So you don't see a flood as violent. It's never explained to us that nature can be very violent. And lightning might come from the sky with an electrical frequency that is very violent. Starts fires. A fire can be very violent. Now understand, in order to understand violence, you have to understand all of this. But right now, the only way that you're being projected a thought about violence is you're being taught is when you fight with another.
Right.
And when you don't have permission to fight with the other. But when you have, in a lot of cases, permission to fight for the authority that dictates you should fight, they say that's not violence. That's you being in the military.
Right.
So I would venture to say that you being in the military and killing a bunch of people in Vietnam for someone else, that's violence. I would think that the police killing your brothers and sisters and people in these neighborhoods, that's violence. But they say that the police don't commit violent acts toward people. I don't know. Me personally, according to the book that I want you to read, according to that author would suggest to you that someone is saying that the only time that you see violence in Memphis, Tennessee is when gangs participate in violent behavior. They call it violence. I would venture to tell you that the police are a gang. The United States Army are a gang. Any group of individuals that actually utilize weapons, and even when they don't utilize weapons, but they would hurt, maim, kill other people, that's violence. What we have to try to understand is how people have defined violence and projected their definitions into our brains, into our thoughts. And then we may be able to control our own thoughts so that we don't start seeing ourselves as something less than human. But again, I am suggesting that when Spain invaded the islands, what they call the Caribbean islands or the West Indies, it was not the West Indies until the English started taking the islands from the Spaniards. The Spaniards had actually started taking the islands from the Portuguese. And you do know about the agreement between the Spaniards and the Portuguese relative to what you call the Caribbean islands and Brazil, don't you? You don't. Well, now I really see that as very strange because we've grown up in the United States of America. They start out teaching these children about Christopher Columbus, but yet you've never heard of the Treaty of Torrijos. In other words, there was a line drawn up by the Vatican having to do with a map that would divide the lower hemisphere dealing with South, what you call South and Central America, and above that line, and it was divided up by the Vatican, the Pope.
The line of demarcation?
It is a line of demarcation, but it's called the demarcation line was drawn up under the Treaty of Torrijos. You have to look this up, this demarcation line that is drawn up by the Pope, or I should say the Vatican, in order to bring Spain and Portugal and France to the table to stop them from going to war with each other. But it didn't stop them from going to war. You see, they were always at war with each other. And if you actually look through the history, you'll see that England was always at war with France. And when Spain comes into existence, and what year does Spain come into existence? I'm asking a question, young people. I know you can answer the question that I'm asking because you are in school. And if you are in school, you should know the answer to the question that I'm asking. And if you don't know the answer, then you need to record the question so that you can research the answer. What is the question I just asked, young man? What is the question that I just asked?
I didn't hear.
So you weren't listening. So somebody, tell me what question I just asked.
What is the year that Spain first established?
So when did Spain come into existence?
I don't know, I'm looking it up now.
Oh, good. So you're asking a question on your phone. What question are you asking?
I'm looking at the history on Wikipedia in Spain.
The history of Spain. What does it say?
1516.
When?
1516.
1516?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, wow. If that's the case, then Spain wasn't even in existence when Christopher Columbus is supposed to have discovered America. If that's the case, you're telling me 1516. Now, at the same time, they say that he came over here on behalf of Spain, right? How did he get to Spain? Oh, he didn't get to Spain according to what you just told me, because Spain doesn't exist yet. So where does he get to?
Gaul?
Portugal?
You call it Gaul. You say Portugal. He does get to Portugal, but Portugal does not send him over to where he's going. He says, they say he said that he was looking for a route to get to China.
Also, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel.
So what you got to do is figure out when they take the throne. How do they come to the throne? The two people you just mentioned. Who are they? Where do they come from? I will bet you that if you get busy and you start actually doing the real work to study this, you will find that one of them comes from Aragon. The other comes from Castile. And original Spaniards are known as Castilians.
Isabella must be from.
I don't know who must be from anywhere. So you are going to do the research to find out who actually comes from Aragon and who is Castilian. And the original Spaniards are identified as Castilians. And if you speak real Spanish, you speak Castilian Spanish. And it is not Spanish, it is Espanol. It does not become Spanish until Espanol is now translated into English. Inglés. Now it becomes the word Spanish. But Spain is actually not Spain, it is España. España. You follow me? It was not Spain. Now what you might want to do when you look up Spain, you find the Iberian peninsula. In English, it is known as Iberia. And down there in Louisiana, back when there was New Spain, before it was New France, you had Iberia.
There's a place called New Iberia.
I just said that. That's what I just said, Doc. That's exactly right. And New Iberia is Spain. New Nova España. And that's why in New Orleans, when you look up on the street signs in the right places, the sign is in French, Spanish, and English. Now you need to know why. If you don't know why, then that means you've never learned history. If you've never learned history, I don't know how y'all talking about y'all gonna solve some problems for these children. There's no way possible that you can address or solve any problems if you do not know history. Yes.
So, Spain owns New Orleans.
No. You say they owned?
Well, purchased.
No. They did own, as you said, New Orleans. At least they said they did. They invaded the area that you're calling New Orleans. But New Orleans is not a Spanish word.
It's a French word.
It's a French word.
And
See, Louisiana is actually the name of Louis and Anna. Now, the letter I that is between Louis and Anna that letter is the word and. Because what you are saying when you say Louisiana is Louis and Anna. Now, that's what I want the children to learn how to do.
I remember you saying that I is like a word that you bring two
It's
words.
called a conjunction vowel. It's like the word Africa. The letter I brings afer together with ka. It's a conjunction vowel. Czechoslovakia, the O is a conjunction vowel. And as you learn how to do this over a period of time, it will help you to do what you were suggesting in your comment on that thread. I appreciate you for what you were doing because it shows that someone is choosing to do the work. If you do the work, you will get the reward. You understand? Only reward that actually comes from effort is the only reward of having. All these people, especially the ones that say they're relative to me, they want something for nothing, they ain't gonna get nothing. Just a problem. You see, they're not willing to put any work in. And that work is effort. And from that work, that effort, you can get reward. They want something for nothing. So if you notice, most folks are waiting on me to tell them something. I don't have anything to tell anybody. The only thing I can possibly do is point to you where to go look. But then, when you go look, you're not going to know what to do. So I do my best to try to show you how to do this. If you practice and teach yourself how to do this, I am suggesting you can get ahead of the game. Now, violence is what we started out talking about, right? Now, I don't want to go too far because we get caught up in this, and I'll be talking about this all night, and I don't want to do that. Yes, dear. You start a conversation with me with the word That's like, duh. You know what I'm going to call you if you do that, right? What am I going to call you? I'm going to call you Jughead. Alright, because I think Jughead was the dumbest one in the group. Alright, I don't want to call you Jughead, right? I want you to be Archie, because you have to be the one that's on top, okay? Now, what are you about to ask me?
Last Wednesday night, you asked me who the president of Democratic Republic of Congo is.
Good.
The
Now.
president is-
Now, right? Okay. Did you say, to me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The The president of Democratic Republic of Congo is Joseph Kabila.
Okay. Now, is he the present president?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Now, this used to be Zaire, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what you are called now, right? Zaire. Okay, now, Zaire. Who was the president when it was called Zaire? So next week, your job is to find out who the president was when they named it Zaire. All right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can some of y'all?
Excuse me, sir.
I'm sorry. What?
Excuse me. Last Wednesday, you asked me what year was Cairo founded Egypt. It was founded in 2000 BC and ruled
Cairo or Egypt?
Egypt. Yeah.
That's right, Egypt. But Cairo is a rather new addition to Egypt. So I want you to mix those up. See, because a lot of folks will try to make you think that those people that actually founded Cairo were actually Egyptians or Kemetians or were there when it was Akabulan. What I want you to understand is Cairo is a brand new place. And the people that formed and founded Cairo actually killed all the people who look like you. Catch my drift?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we're going to do it again, and you're going to find when Cairo came into existence.
Yes, sir.
That's different than when Egypt came into existence. And where did you find in your book that said that Egypt came into existence around 2000 BC?
I looked it up on the computer.
I know you did. And let me tell you what, do not trust computers.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to say to you don't use computers. But I want you to learn how to do this so you get correct information. First of all, you learn how to think, instead of thinking BC, you learn how to think BCE. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you say BC out of your mouth, then people who are not going to tell you what they're thinking, they're going to think you don't have a clue what you're talking about. You see, that's what people actually thought was a reality about 25, 30 years ago. Since then, the term has changed from BC to BCE. What did BC mean?
I don't know.
That's right. So that means you looked at something, then you repeated what you found to me without doing the research to make sure that you know what you're talking about. Be careful about that.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to practice together. So if you practice with me, by the time it comes time for you to be as old as the rest of us, and you're really ready to go at this, you're going to be ready, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What's your name again?
Cairo.
That's right, Cairo. And so I want you, that's why I want you to find out when Cairo comes into existence, right?
Yes, sir.
Now there was a man that was killed, murdered, not assassinated, not too long ago. What was his name? He was, what? No. He was murdered in Egypt. And before he was murdered, he said that he was the first of the last that had finally come back to the position where Africans were actually in command of ancient Egypt. You see, once upon a time, Africans were the ones who were actually in command of ancient Egypt. What was the man's name? What's his name? Come on, Lumumba. No, Lumumba is the brother that I want her to come to know when we get through investigating Mobutu. So when she finds Mobutu, she will find Lumumba. But the question I'm asking now has to do with the president of Egypt before the president that was just murdered and taken off when they just changed it around with the Arab Spring. The one that they just killed was the one that was responsible for the assassination of what's his name? No, Gaddafi was Libya. And Gaddafi came to power because his father actually overthrew the government that had been put into place by the folks out of Europe. So his father overthrew that government, and when his father came to power, now another group tried to overtake it, and Gaddafi wound up being the one who comes to power after the conflagration, I guess is what you would call it, the violence.
Anwar Sadat.
His name is Anwar Sadat, and Anwar Sadat was African. Not Southern African, below the Sudan, and Northern African, which would now put you in another group, because until we start understanding all these things for ourselves, we're going to be locked into the thoughts that other people are projecting off the TV and giving to us and our children. And we'll never figure this out. His name was Anwar Sadat. Now, until you said that, you didn't know anything about Anwar Sadat, did you? But yet he is the one that was running around here talking about Egypt and ancient Africans and blah, blah. And I never heard of Sadat. Ain't that something?
That's because I was into ancient Egypt. I'm not into
Yeah,
modern.
but see, ancient Egypt that you think you understand
I don't.
ain't nothing but some old nonsense that got made up that these kids are imitating.
Sure.
But I need you to know how to do this so that you can unravel this for yourself. Because I don't want to just tell you, boy, that's nut stuff that you're involved with. And if you want to be nutty, fine. But please don't infect our children so that we come up with a whole nother generation of nuts. You know what I'm talking about? I heard it. All those nonsense. No. Listen, the reason that I try to get these children to learn the alphabet in the way that I'm asking them to learn it, you see, because all those Negroes that you're talking about, they're talking about some ancient alphabet dealing with the vulture or the eagle or the bird as being the letter A representing Horus. But understand something. You write with the English alphabet. English alphabet is utilizing Latin or Roman characters. When they finally translated the Rosetta Stone, they translated the alphabet that you're looking at that is in that dictionary, that is in the encyclopedia, that you have to take the law test with and the MCATs and everything else that you're doing. So now if you want to go and study some language, that's not even in use on the planet. Instead of the language that they have to use to take these tests to get full scholarships, then what we're doing is we're just playing with ourselves. I don't have time for that. I'm not playing. I want them to learn the alphabet that Champollion the elder and Champollion the younger deciphered for Napoleon. When they stole the Rosetta Stone out of that desert. There's a reason. And if our children learn that alphabet correctly, that actually came out of Africa, came from a hieroglyphic that was invented in Africa. If they learn that correctly, then I don't have to worry about them making what kind of score they're going to make when they take their MCATs or their LSATs. They're going to pass it. Just by learning the alphabet. Just by learning the story of the alphabet. You see, once you learn that alphabet, and you can tell stories to your children, you can create the kind of stories that Moses created. I'm not talking about the story that was created by the producer of the Ten Commandments. See, the producers of the Ten Commandments took the story that they say that Moses created and made something else. Now I understand that you believe Cecil B. DeMille's. I understand that. But I'm telling you that they just made that up. They just made it up, and they got you convinced that that's a reality. Yeah. And the next thing you know, I'm trying to explain something to some children that come in here, and then they push back because they don't want to hear you talking anything about what they believe.
Oh, wow.
Can you dig it? And that gets to be real tricky because that says that somebody has a real power that has been placed into our children, and we don't know how to go in there and get it out.
Right.
And we're not helping them to learn how to protect themselves. How many of y'all remember Scanners?
The devices?
It's a movie, old movie called Scanners. And there was some people that had the power to scan other people. And there were those few that had the power to block those that would scan. Now, only thing I've been trying to do my best to do is to help all of you develop the power to block the scanners. But I got people insisting on allowing the scanners to get in. So now I know that there are those who think that based on what we're talking about, that most of you are bored talking about this because y'all don't really know what we're talking about. And then we need to talk about some stuff like Donald Trump on the news, but I don't think so. I think we need to talk about this. You just posted the other day something about demon.
Yes.
And what you did was, you actually, because we were dealing with another word, what was the word?
It started with divinity.
With divinity. And it led you to demon,
Right.
which was the Greek aspect of the word.
The Greek also means.
But it also means Democrat. You see, the first part of the word Democrat is
Demon.
demon. The second part of the word, krasi, is governed. So Democrat is governed by,
The divine.
no, in this case, it's by the people. But this group of people is the mob, and that's what makes them the demon. You see, the mob is the ignorant. And so a Democrat is one who is ruled by ignorance. You follow me? Democracy.
Right.
So you do just what you were doing, and you keep learning to break this apart, because you'll come to understand. And we're going to go contextually, step by step. Now, Taj. Huh? Who you talking to? What? I didn't hear you. Okay. Well, you sitting there going to sleep on me. I know you tired. I know you tired. I'm the first to acknowledge that you tired. You know, but you're not going to sleep on me, are you? Huh? Good man. Just bear with me. I need you to learn this stuff. Hello? I know you're upset, you're mad, you're tired, you want to go to sleep. But would you pay attention, please? Huh? What? I didn't. You said what? What? Okay, just pay attention, all right? Let's try. All right, anyway. Demon is very good that you got there, you see, because the demon is the same thing as the divine. You follow me? But what we're doing
Split.
is we're going from language to language. You understand? Because you got to get to the Sanskrit, you got to get over to the Greek. So as you go to different languages and you make the translation, it's going to be kind of tricky.
It's different flavors each one. You get.
That's right. It changes the context. And by the time this stuff gets to English, it'll be 5 or 6 different languages bringing a thought into, and it'd be different words that we use. And so I think I may use the word wish, and you use the word what? Want,
Desire.
and you use the word desire.
Hope.
So you just use French, and you just use Anglais. You understand? And I just use. We gotta figure that out. What's wish? Where did it come from? What did you say? Hope.
Yeah.
All right. So now we gotta go in and find out which different languages all these words came into English from, and then why we actually think they're all different words when they're the same word. Isn't that something? So that's why words are so important to understand. And if they figure the language out, now they're ahead of the game.
German?
What?
Which comes from the German, Germanic?
So he says which comes from the Germanic. So what's the root in the Germanic?
Wuskin?
Oh, good. So we have to go back and go step by step and figure that out. Don't just look at that phone and think you got this and you figuring this out. It's not going to work like that. It really takes work, step by step. So what else did you find when you looked at divinity? You found this that we're talking about. What else did you look at?
It reminded me of a text I had seen that had been introduced in a much more limited form, the Gospel of Thomas. So I
You
thought
know
that
what
was-
made me think that you were some type of divinity student or theological student or something?
I think, I honestly think it was, I think my first reference to the Gospel of Thomas was actually at Christian Brothers.
I understand. So you had comparative religion.
Yes. And,
Yeah, that's
and
what
also
that sounded like.
they did
I was
the
looking
roast
at your post and I was thinking to myself, you know what? Everybody better get involved in this because now we actually have some folks that are willing to participate in such a way. You say you're learning from the site by following these suggestions,
Yeah.
and that means you can show some other people who are not aware enough to really understand what it is that you might be doing. But what you're doing is you're taking yourself way past what you were introduced to at Christian Brothers, one of the best schools in the southern United States. But now you're able to do that based on what we're doing. So it's good that you're here because now a few of us might be able to take what it is that you're doing and over a period of time learn how to do this. And even if the adults won't do it, because most of the adults they won't do it. But if I can just get a few of those children, where's the other one?
In the 2006.
If I can just, what, this one, this is Zaire,
That's like
and this is Cairo,
Cairo.
that's John or James. James the what? The greater or the lesser? You I want to know what makes you James the greater. I like that. I like that. We're getting there. But now, did you know that James the greater and James the lesser are two of the 12 disciples? You didn't? Okay, well, wait a minute. Who are the first two of the 12? Zaire, who are the first two of the 12 disciples? No, that James the greater and James the lesser are two of the 12, but they wouldn't be the first two. I'm looking for the first two because I want you to use a strategy in order to pull the 12 up. So the first two, you looked at the device, right? Everybody has looked at the device. Has everyone looked at the device? What does it say? The sentence. For the 12 disciples. Come on, Joe, tell them. What does it say? All right, here we go again. Kim, what does it say? All right. Taj, what does it say? Open up. Huh? All right, tomorrow, what does it say?
The animals bite.
Now stop. Stop, don't go any further. He said two words. Those two words are the first two words in the sentence that you are using for the device that you have created to bring up the 12 disciples out of your memory, out of your file cabinet. Now, James's mother back there, I know when you were being dragged off to church, they made you learn the 12 disciples.
Dr. Black, I didn't go to church.
And you never, this whole time, you've never discussed at any point the 12 disciples. Well, I know Joanne did.
Yeah.
Yes, I know she did. Right? And I know Miss Kim did. Every day. So that means y'all was supposed to know the 12 disciples. Now, in your sentence, the first two words for your device is what Tamarcus just told you. Tamarcus, what did you say?
Animals bite.
Animals bite. Andrew? Bartholomew. Now, the reason you know it's Andrew and Bartholomew is because animals starts with the letter A. And that should immediately bring up Andrew for you. And bite starts with the letter B. And that should bring up Bartholomew for you. But if you don't practice and you don't look, you won't be able to do it. Now, all I asked you to do was to learn by this week the first 6. So that's 2, Andrew and Bartholomew. So now, who was that just told me 2 more? Told me the first 2 J's. Somebody just told me the first 2 J's. James, you said your name is what? And the other one is, that's the 2 that start with the J for James. So now we've got 4. So now we've got 2 more J's. One of the J's is going to be John. And the other J is going to be Judas. And Judas should be the word juicy. I know it's in there. You have juicy, and you have jumping, and jelly, junipers, and it'll be 4 J's. And that'll be 6. And now if you can learn the 6 of the 12, and then by next week you learn the other 6, and if you can do this, then I guarantee you when the time comes that you have to learn the litany, that you're going to have to learn a litany of phrases, words, something for law school, for the LSAT, for medical school, for the MCAT, you will be able to do it. But you must practice. Y'all don't want to practice. Right, James? You don't want to practice, right? You do? Okay, well, name the first 6 disciples out of the 12.
Andrew.
I want you to start with your sentence. Animals what?
Bite.
Animals bite.
Juicy.
Good. You juicy. What's next? With this, make Judas first, because Juicy will bring Judas up for you. You got it? You want to do anything to make it easy for the brain to coordinate with the work that you're doing. So when the time comes in the future that I'm going to walk in this room and I'm going to ask you, what is 5 times 6,433,336? You will be able to give me back an answer in less than 20 seconds. But you will not be able to do that unless you do what I'm asking you to do. Put back, you fight because you always tell me, well, Mr. Black, you got to tell me so I can understand, and then I do it. No, you understand it? It's not required. What's required is that you do what I ask you to do. If you do what I ask you to do, I guarantee you this works. Has it been working for you, Mr. White?
My memory is actually improving over the last few
And you're just getting started. How long you been around, Tamarcus?
About 9 years.
Wow! And he's starting to really learn how to do this. Now, Miss Zahir, right? What were you supposed to be learning from me to be ready for this week? Stand up, let's go. Say it loud enough so he can get that frown off his face. Because if he see you doing this, he won't frown so much. Go ahead.
Is It Arrived by Max Aaron. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace that may be in sight. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons, they are vexings to the spirit.
They're what?
They are vexings.
They're vexations. They're vexations.
If you could
Now wait. Spell vexation for me.
V-E-X.
What are you spelling? Yes, vexation. Okay.
V-E-X-A-T-I-O-N-S.
Okay, so that's a plural. So what does it mean? So you're going to look it up and be able to tell me in the future what to vex is. Or you're going to break the word apart so that you can explain it to me, right? Keep going.
If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter.
And not only will you be vain or bitter if you don't know what you're doing when you compare yourself with others, no doubt you're going to get to swear a big head and you're going to be egomaniacal. You got that? So we don't want you to do that, so don't worry about comparing yourself to other people. You don't have to compare yourself to other people because all of you are going to be better than others. In other words, you don't need to compare yourself to be better than everybody. What's that little girl that's jumping around on the acrobat thing?
Simone Biles.
Huh?
Simone Biles.
What thing? About comparing herself to anybody. Why? She's the best. So if we the best, we don't have to worry about comparing ourselves, or for that matter, being compared. What's that? What do we need to cover anything, Mr. White?
I do have some questions. Okay. In digging into the Tetragrammaton.
Good. Miss Said, where are you?
Well, she went to the bathroom with
Oh.
James.
Oh, Kenneth is the one. James, you know the Tetragrammaton?
Yes.
Now, how is it spelled in your dictionary? Is it grammaton or grammaton? Grammaton. Good. Okay, so you said digging into the Tetragrammaton.
I could not find the connection to where it links with the concepts of earth, wind, fire, and water.
You won't. But what you will find is the concept where it's connected to Yahweh.
Okay.
And I think it's Y.
Yeah, Yod,
It's
Y.
either W in some cases
V.
or the V in some cases. And you were saying what now?
And that I could translate to arm, person, hook, person.
You can in
But
a way.
this isn't connected.
No. In a way, because you're just using the translation of what the hieroglyphic of each letter comes out to be. But you have to understand that as you go from language to language, things are going to change. You follow me?
Sure.
But doing what you're doing, that's
I just keep digging. I'm not
That's
off.
right.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. That's all I can ask.
And what's happening is based on what you're doing, you got to go through Jehovah, right hand of God, helper of God,
Okay.
and a number of other things that you're going to come across. You're going to go through Yeshua, you're going to go through Jesus, You're going to go through Jesus spelled with the letter I rather than the letter J. By the time you finish, you should come with Krishna. And when you look up what Krishna is, what's it going to say?
Black rock.
Black stone. Black stone. Now, also, when you look up stone at some point in the future, you're going to come up with mineral or man. And now you have to understand what we're talking about when we're talking about the wisdom that's going to come to the stone. But how are we going to deal with wisdom, let's say when we're dealing with Sophia? Sophia.
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 Sophia's wisdom.
Sophia's wisdom,
Philosophy.
where?
Greek.
Greece, okay. But understand, this is going to be what she was called when she was water. You see, time never was when man was not. So before it became man or earth man, what was it?
Woman.
It was what? Woman? No, before it became earth man. Earth man is the thing.
Okay.
But before it becomes a thing, it was fire. But before it was fire,
Okay.
it was air or gas. And then the fire lit up the gas and caused the steam. It created the water. And all of a sudden, the whole round thing was all water. And that's when you had Aquaman. Don't you remember Aquaman? You see, even when it was a big ball of water, you still had man. Time never was when man was not. So each stage that the planet went through, you still had man, because all man is mind. Now, how do you know I'm not just telling you some old preacher nonsense that the imam or the rabbi would tell you because you don't have enough sense to look for yourself and y'all just believe everything that you hear? So how you know I'm not lying?
I'm not going to believe what you say.
Good, so what do you got to do? So how do you research that? What's your name, you know? Right there.
Teresa.
Teresa. How would you find that the word man is actually the word mind? How would you go about finding that?
Probably start with the etymology of
Good. How would the etymology of which word? So where would it lead you?
Probably give me the origin.
It gives you the origin, but in the origin of the word man, what would you find? You find what now? To think. Well, that's what's going to be in the origin relative to men. So, see, you got to find men. If you go to man,
It'll say semen.
it'll say see men. But men is the root of what word?
Mental.
Mental. You see, you are a mental being. And the reason you are called man is because you think. You are supposed to be sapient and sentient. Why aren't we learning this in school? Why aren't we learning to do this?
Don't need you to think.
Don't need you to think. And if you don't think, if you're not behaving like a thinking person, I'm not going to treat you like a man. I'm going to treat you like an animal. Now, when I treat you like an animal, are you going to know that's what I'm doing?
No.
No, you're going to know that I'm not treating you like a man. You're going to tell me about your rights. Where they come from? Where did you get your rights from? Where did you get your rights?
Constitution.
The Constitution! Okay? Now, this Constitution, how many articles are there? How many articles are there? 7 articles. Now, after the 7 articles, what do we now have listed after the 7 articles? All of your signatures. after the first 7 articles in the Constitution, all the people who signed the Constitution, the names are there. Then the amendments after the articles. Now, one of the amendments is going to be your Bill of Rights. Who invented the Bill of Rights? Where did it come from? Who came up with it? Who drafted these Bill of Rights?
There were people who objected to inadequacies in the Constitution.
That's right. And so they amended a Bill of Rights to the 7 articles of the Constitution. That's right. But-
it's always been designed.
What?
The Bill of Rights.
No. No. Not only that, the Constitution's origin is not out of England. We're taught in school that the Great Paper, what do they call the Great Paper?
Next
Magna
part.
Carta.
Magna Carta led to the Constitution. Wasn't you taught that in school?
Yes, yeah, that's back.
But in fact, if you really go do some work, what you find out is no, the Constitution didn't come from the Great Paper. That's just made up nonsense. And then here's what's really kidding. When they teach us that, they don't teach us anything about when King John signed the Magna Carta. What year was that? 1215. Where? Runnymede. You see, some kind of way, we've got to get busy making sure that all of our children learn these things. And I've had people actually ask me, why they need to know that? Why we need to know? We don't need to know that.
White folks' history.
Yeah, ain't that something? And then the funny thing about it is, when they were coming to my classes at Rose College, I had youngsters like these back here, like Taj. See, I was adamant that they learn about Napoleon, Shakespeare, the Constitution, who the people were that actually signed the Constitution, who
President.
the people were that signed the Declaration of Independence. Oh, they definitely got to learn presidents. Everything, dealing with anything that we're going to face as we go through this, that we have to learn. My question is why are they not learning it in public school? What is going on? But why is it that it's so important? Because I've had people tell me that they shouldn't be having to learn about no presidents. At the same time, if you reach in your pocket and pull out any kind of bill, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a president on the bill. If not a president, I think on some bills you might find Alexander Hamilton. We don't know anything about Alexander Hamilton. Because of the play?
Yeah.
Well, this is a funny thing. Most of the folks relative to me would never see the play. They don't know anything about it. But what about Hamilton makes him somebody that all these children should learn about Hamilton? What about him would make him someone in history that our children should learn about him? Why?
Is he a person of color?
He was a person of color. How do you know?
I don't know what I got
9 times out of 10, you read it in a book.
there. Man, just regurgitating something I heard in class.
He wasn't a president. So
No, but he was in the book 5 Colored Presidents. He
Oh.
was listed.
Sort of.
He was listed in that book, but he was never a president. He was a secretary of what?
Treasurer.
Secretary of the Treasury, and he helped to create the first treasury in this country. And he helped to create the Treasury Department, which was the first federal police in this country. And the first federal police in this country, the Secret Service, was actually created because each colony, when they came together to form this place, was creating their own currency. And they had to make a rule to say, wait a minute, now we can't all be creating these different currencies. So we need one currency. But they were some of the best counterfeiters on the planet. And so when they created the one currency, each colony had a counterfeiting problem. And so Alexander Hamilton had to help to create the Secret Service so they could go in and police this money. We know this, right?
No, because all these founding fathers were virtuous and above any kind of manipulation of the system they just created.
Is that right? But you know, this is strange because not too long after they created this system, they came up with the Sedition Act. I know you're all familiar with the Sedition Act, right? Right? I think 12 years after the founding, which is in 1789, they came up with the Sedition Act. Was it on your phone? What does it say?
I'm looking at Burr and
Who?
Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton.
Okay, and Burr kills Hamilton, and Burr runs to New Orleans because that's where the second jurisdiction was, and Burr was one of them. Second jurisdiction of the Masonic Order. He was one of them, and so they protected him when he got down there because he was on the land. He was running because see the way they had the duel. Well, when they dug up Hamilton's body, it showed that he got shot in the back.
Huh. There was no
There was no duel. That's right. Burr shot him in the back.
rule.
And as you go through this, and matter of fact, I decided I was going to send you Settlers. Settlers. The Settlers is mythology of the white proletariat.
Okay.
Because you seem to be serious about studying, and so I said I was going to send you that since you are serious about studying. Okay. Now, at the same time, you still reading Violence in the Promised Land and Discipline, Violence in the African American Child, right, Ms. Shirley? Yeah, you haven't finished. You read the introduction. What does it say? It's on your phone. Go ahead on. You rolling. You got it on your phone. I like that. You got it on your phone. Well, read the introduction to us. What?
What were you gonna say about King John signing the Magna Carta?
I wasn't gonna say anything about it. I said that you ought to go look up King John 1215 running meet signing the Magna Carta.
Okay.
Yeah. I was suggesting that everybody needs to know this history. And if y'all don't know the history of King John and the Magna Carta, then y'all got a problem.
So you saying that there is no relationship between the Magna Carta and the Constitution?
No, I'm not saying there's no relationship. I'm saying that the relationship that they taught us in school is nonsense. That's just a made-up nonsense. As a matter of fact, what they should have taught us in school is what I think that I've written for some of you that's bothered to read it. I wrote for you, it says that when these people signed the Declaration of Independence, King George III had asked them to look, call off this war thing. Don't be talking about fighting. And we're going to all get along. And I'm going to give you what you want. I'm going to recognize you. I'm going to let you have a representative in the parliament. And what they told King George, they told King George, well, no, thank you. We don't want what comes under the Magna Carta. Why did they tell King George they don't want the rights and privileges under the Magna Carta?
Well, I think that they were viewed as slaves, servants.
They were viewed as subjects to the
And they
crown,
didn't want to be subject.
and they didn't. But why did they tell King George that they didn't need the Magna Carta or the rules of the Magna Carta? I have written this for everybody.
What's the question?
Why did the signers of the Declaration of Independence actually suggest to the king, we do not want your Magna Carta. We don't want peace. We're going to fight this war for our independence, for our freedom, for our liberty.
Because they didn't want to be giving something?
Why?
Did they be giving somebody something?
Yes, but But under the English Revolution that had already taken place, they had already taken the rights and privileges of the Magna Carta from the people. It had already happened in England. That was the English Revolution. And what they said was, we don't want to go through this again. So what we want to do is we want to go through with this and we want to declare our independence.
What did that imply by them taking the right? What did that mean for the people of England?
For the people of England, they became peasants and peons and all of the subjection of the crown that they had been placed under. The crown could billet soldiers in your house. The crown could deny you the right to locomotion because if you were a peasant, you were not allowed to ride a horse. The crown could actually suggest that if your daughter was getting ready to get married, the landlord had the first right or privilege on the night before she was to marry. That was going on. And the Magna Carta was supposed to stop all of that. Well, when they now said, you know what? We're not going to let the people have the right of the Magna Carta. We're going to take it back. They disbanded Parliament. That's why you had, what's that guy's name? The one that was going to blow up Parliament? Guy Fawkes. That's right. That's right. But now we don't know anything about English history. See, y'all actually think that spat a rod, spoiled a child came from God, talking about beating your babies. You don't know that there was just a poem written for the English Revolution. What was his name? Who wrote the poem? Now you know I'm not going to tell y'all. It's on the site. It's there. Because we've been trying to get y'all to stop beating on your babies. So we asked y'all to go look up. It's on there. All you have to put in Spat a Rod, Spoil a Child. It'll tell you where the poem came from, how it was created, you know, how it came to be in your thoughts, having what you thinking that this was some words from God or some nonsense. Y'all like to think that, like God told you to beat your children.
Yes, they do.
Come on, tell the truth, man. Y'all gonna tell me you didn't think that?
It's the number one reason. Anytime I try to address it on Facebook, it's the main thing that they put, spread a rod.
Oh, God told me to do that. Did anyone ever think that? You thought that. Anybody else? You thought that. That's the way it should be. Ain't that something?
That's the problem.
So your mom had the ironing cords at your behind, huh? So hopefully we're going to learn how not to put the ironing cords on their backs. Now I know James don't think that you're going to beat him with an ironing cord. Right, James? You don't think you do that. Huh? No. Well, you a lucky man. I know that. You a lucky man.
Yes, sir.
Because if you had come through this when I came through this, boy, they'd use ironing cords and baseball bats and everything else. Tree branches, all of it. And they'd be spanning a rod, spoil the child, and all the rest of those nonsense. It's a poem. You know what they had to do with it, right?
Did it come from?
Name of the poem is Hubris. Now you want to find the author of the poem. What's his name?
Samuel Butler.
Samuel Butler. That's who wrote the poem for the English Revolution. And he was saying, listen, y'all, if you actually come out before you ejaculate, you will spare reproduction. You spoil a child. Yeah. That's what he was talking about. Now, folks don't have a clue about this. They actually think some old nonsense that got created. Like you heard that child talking about some DC nonsense. And I don't know, I've had people arguing with me with this about the last 30 years. And we have been trying to teach children for the last 30 years leave the BC alone, and start going with BCE. That was 30 years ago we started doing this. All we can do is go one step at a time. And over a period of time, it's starting to happen. Right now, we're looking all over the place, and people are actually writing with enslaved. They're writing bondsmen rather than slave. You understand what I'm saying? So it's been going on a long time. But see, I know when I read and you listen to what you're saying, I know they're lying. Because right here they'll say enslaved, and right here they'll say slave. And what I know is, oh, that person hasn't practiced well enough yet to eliminate that out of their brains. So you won't get it out of your brains until you practice. You have practiced long enough over a period of time. And then it will not be locked into your brain where you got to always think that people who look like you are slaves. Tell me, have you been thinking that all your life? That people who look like you were slaves? Yes. But understand something, that's because you're hearing the word slave, and since you were a little babe, you've been trained to think of yourself whenever you hear that word. So that's what you see.
Similar to violence.
Similar to violence. You think that when you hear anything about some violence that was created, or black on black crime or something, you think the only people doing it is people you're relative to. That's nonsense. And some kind of way we've got to help our children get those thoughts out of their brains.
Even in your book, you suggest that, like the last hurricane that came through, that's violence.
Violence, hurricanes are violent. Volcanoes are violent. There's that earthquake over in Italy. Violence. Dog walk up there and bite somebody. Violence. Lions eat a gazelle. Violence. I remember when they had me going on the radio and people were advertising me as a motivational speaker. Yeah. And I used to go right on the radio. My wife used to get so mad. I'd go right on the radio and I'd say, you know what? I don't know why they introduced me as a motivational speaker, because I really think that if I have to say something to motivate you, you are not worth me talking to. If I have to say anything to motivate you. See, because I really think that if the gazelle can wake up motivated, if the lion can wake up motivated, then you can wake up motivated. Now, you know why that gazelle is waking up motivated?
Life depends on it.
Because that lion wakes up and catches him sleep.
Yeah, life depends on it.
He's gonna get eaten. And if that lion don't wake up before that gazelle starts running,
It's gonna start.
he's gonna starve to death. Now, you mean to tell me everything on the planet naturally has the motivation to survive except people that I'm relative to? Something ain't right about that.
Because we got the government to wake us up.
And to send you a check in the mail.
Put you to sleep.
Ain't that something? So some kind of way. Now, don't get me wrong. I want y'all to get these checks. But I want you to be smart enough to think how to create revenue streams for yourself in such a way you don't have to depend on anybody's government, on anything. You know what they used to always ask me about, was I going to the march? Now everybody that know me know I'm not going to be at the march. I'm not going to hold hands and sing, we should overcome. Y'all know that. I'm just not going to do. You know what that reminds me of? You ever watch chickens in the barnyard? And every time the farmer come out there and throw that corn, where them chickens, they rushing right up for that corn, right? That's what that marching and singing, that's what that reminds me of. Chickens begging for a handout. And that's like, James, tell me the 6 of the 12 disciples. That's your sentence. So that's 2 of them. So who are those 2? Good. So give me 4 more. So that's good. That's two more. And then there's two after that. So it's 4 J's. So what are their names? Yes, James the greater, James the lesser, Judas and good. That's 6. That's 6. And I think that you are actually bothering to be successful. You're achieving something. And if you take it seriously, you will realize that you're actually able to do this. And that means that you were able to achieve this in a matter of minutes. That ought to make you feel real good. And if you feel good, you can stop making your mama feel bad. I'm saying the better a person feels, the more they'll accomplish. And then you'll start doing things where she'll be pleased. And if she's pleased, then she'll stop when you want to stop at McDonald's. Me personally, if he does not please you, I would not stop when he wants to stop at McDonald's. Me personally. See, I'm not for beating the children, but I'm quick to tell you, don't feed them. Don't feed them. If they don't give you what you need, don't you give them what they need. Now I'm tell you how to feed them when they're hungry, because you don't want to go to jail for not feeding them. No problem. You have them go in the sack and get a potato out of the sack. You take the potato and you put it in a pot of water. You have them boil the potato. And now they have dinner. And if they get tired of eating boiled potato, all you have to do is you get a ketchup bottle, a hot sauce bottle, and you take the ketchup and the hot sauce and you put it in your hot water and you boil it until you have tomato soup. And you get tomato soup. And that way you stay out of any kind of trouble they might try to give you because you didn't feed them. But they're getting what they deserve. And don't you break soft. You know, you break soft in a heartbeat. And give them what they want. They like that chicken that you do. You know, especially that corn that you make with the honey and the butter. And after you got it off the cob and you fried it up real good, and you know, and the little home fried potatoes that you make with the little onions in them and all that, and you put it together and make those biscuits, and that water, they melt in their mouths and stuff. They love that. Yeah, but all you got to do is when you make that, you sit. No, they got a potato. You sit there and eat the chicken. And when you eat your chicken, use a knife and fork. When you eat your chicken. And give them a spoon for their soup and potato. And make them understand that the minute they give you what you want, which is A's, I don't even like B's personally. They gotta get A's if they want to eat like you eat. Give you what you want, you get them what they want. It's fair trade. And we have to learn fair trade. You know? So, see, like in order to eat with me, the children have to know that whole map up on the wall. They have to be able to go up there and point to James. I'm sure what I'm talking about. Come up here and point on that map and show me Tierra del Fuego. It's on the map. Now, see if you can find Tierra del Fuego. I don't think so. That's a map of the United States. I don't think you're going to find Tierra del Fuego in the United States. Where do you think you could possibly find it? Now you have to understand is that the Spaniards named practically everything in what you call South and Central America. Even though I want our children to understand there's no such thing as South and Central America. You see, in the public schools, they teach you that there are 7 containers. A container is what you call a continent. But when you go to school in the Spanish-speaking country, they teach that there are only 5 continents. And that America is one continent. One place. Now, since you're looking, and if you understand what I just said, all you have to do is look at the tip of South America, the tip of South America, the tip of South America. Put your finger on South America. That's South America. Now, come to its tip. Good. Now, bend down and look closely and find me Tierra del Fuego. Now, you know you better check him for glasses. Where is she? Where is she? She left out of it? Oh, you better check him for glasses.
We checked last week. We checked.
Do you see Tierra del Fuego? How do you spell it?
Tierra.
You do have it. So what does tierra mean? Ah. So now we have to figure out what del means and what fuego means. But that is the place you're looking at right there. Now don't you think it's strange that all of our kids that go to public school have never heard of Tierra del Fuego? But yet all the ships that they say came from over here on this side, Europe, Africa, anywhere, and came to the United States. If they came around and came to San Francisco, they had to come all the way down, and they had to traverse Tierra del Fuego. But yeah, we don't know anything about it. Why not? But that's strange.
So what did they do to stop having to go come all the way there?
They put in a canal, Panama Canal. But before the Panama Canal actually was placed in Panama, where were they looking at? They were trying to put the canal in a place called Nicaragua. And there was a guy from Tennessee that went to Nicaragua and he killed, they estimate, probably 1 million people trying to take and control Nicaragua in order so that they could put this canal that they wanted to put in. She was getting ready to ask a question. What was the question, Ms. Carroll? About the canal.
No, he said why they put it across. Who is that?
Who put it across?
Yeah.
Well, the French started the project out. The same people who put the Suez Canal in actually started out putting the Panama Canal in. But they lost the contract and they left. So then they brought in a cat named Theodore Roosevelt. And Theodore Roosevelt went down there and said, oh, we're going to finish this. And he put word out that we needed workers. And those workers came because all the other workers had died and been shipped off in barrels because they sold the body parts over in France and places, So now they get to get more people to come. Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, Jamaica, the islands. They came from all over the place. But a great number of the people in Panama traced their ancestors to Georgia. You follow me? So now understand something. They haven't expressed any of this to us in school. But I am telling you, if you learn how to do the research, you can find people and books by different people. One of the brothers who wrote one of the books was a teacher. The majority of the people that came here to settle. They were settlers.
They call it a lumpen proletarian.
Well, that is a name that was created by people like Karl Marx when he was creating this understanding of communism. And he actually projected certain language that he created in what is called the manifesto. When I was a young person, this is how I learned to put book covers on my books. I was reading a book on the subway, and people would walk up to me and say, you're a Marxist. So all of a sudden they assumed. At the time, I was actually studying people like Greenspan and other economists. But they never looked at me and said I was a Greenspanist. Isn't that something? But they assumed, because I was reading this book, that I'm a Marxist. So I used to do experiments when I was growing up. I would take a communist newspaper and I would go to the park and I'd actually see older so-called black men sitting on the bench at the park. And I'd say, excuse me, sir, what does this say? And they'd look at it and start trying to read it, and then someone might jump out and say something about communists, and they'd jump up from the bench. I ain't reading that. What? I'm serious. You see, they weren't gonna read the Daily World. That's how deep someone had gotten into our brains. And then people would say, no, that's not so. Oh, I know it's so. You see, watch your eyes on the prize. Watch when they have the group of kids come in that the preachers are all standing in that morning before they get ready to go to Central High School. And watch what the kids all say. And we're not communist. Why would they say that? Who told them to say that? What do children know about communism? You see, people, when they were killing all the people down in Nicaragua, they didn't do anything about it. What the people know about is beans. That's all they know about. They know about beans, frijoles. That's what they know about. But your politics, the politics of rich people, they don't know anything about that. They're killing each other. Your politics. But we, I hope, are going to make sure that our children learn is how to think to such a degree that no one can have them putting on uniforms to kill each other. That's how you start to address the violence problem.
Why were you reading Karl Marx at such a young age?
I was not only reading Karl Marx at such a young age, I was reading the literary works of Ho Chi Minh. I was reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. The reason I was reading these things is because I got politicized at 5 years old. Because it was around that time that all of a sudden they came out with the picture in the newspaper of Emmett Till. And every child wound up being politicized during that time. Because every child looked at this picture of Emmett Till. And people were trying to make every child understand, if we don't get busy, this can happen to you.
Yeah, he's from
And
Chicago.
so, huh?
He's from Chicago.
He was from Chicago. Well, I'm saying, every day you saw the picture in the newspapers. People were talking about it. Like you should be talking about all these children getting slaughtered right now, all over this country. And if your children are not sharp, mentally prepared, then 9 times out of 10, they'll be in that number. Now I know people say, well, not my child. Okay, let your child grow up to be a dummy. Let your child grow up to be one of those ones that they use to fill up the penitentiary. You see, you don't know anything about all of the penitentiaries. Do you know that you have more deaths every year in the penitentiary right here, right off, was it Sycamore? and you have about 3 penitentiaries out there, you have more deaths at those penitentiaries out there than all of the killings combined in the course of a year for the whole area. But you never see not one of those killings in the newspaper. Not one.
Do they just die?
Well, they die, and the ambulance comes onto the prison ground, picks them up, and takes them off the prison grounds, but there's no report that's ever filed. And I think, was that you that put up how the FBI is saying that they've actually started a file to record all the killings of all the children going on all over the country? Wasn't that you?
Yes, because out of 18,000 police departments, only 3% actually report to the FBI on deaths in police custody or with police involvement. Voluntary reporting.
So you understand, he posted this on the site. So what I'm hoping is that all of you will start doing some work and actually start, even if you don't post anything, just follow everything so that you can learn something. It's not about anybody trying to tell you what to do or what to believe. Matter of fact, I'm trying to tell you all, don't believe anything. Believe absolutely nothing. Check, recheck, double check, check again. Everything. You don't have to believe anything. You can know. People telling me all the time about that, you don't believe in God? I know God. Why do I need to believe? Belief is for people who want to remain stupid. Knowledge is for people who are looking to gain the power that comes from the intellect, from being man. And that's what you are. You are man. You see, man is either gender of the species. It's either gender. The man is the species. That's what they call the species. Man. And the word comes from the word men, and men is the root of mental, and the reason they call it man is because they're supposed to think. So anytime your children are not thinking and they're walking around acting like Diablos, then you are seeing the manifestation of the devil. What time is it?
7:30.
Oh, we gotta go. I'm sorry. No, we just want to get out at 7:30. We gotta go.